answer.
Hello, it's Thursday, July 20th, 2017. You are listening to Inception Radio Network, voice of the fringe majority. This is Carol Carl with UFO Headline News. For today's broadcast, we're going to jump shark somewhat, change our usual form, our opening with what's in the sky tonight. We're going to talk about what was up on the moon 48 years ago today, July 20th, 1969. One giant leap for mankind. We got this story from the official NASA government/mission site. Well, let's go back in time. July 1969. It's a little over 8 years since the flights of Gagarin and Shepard, followed quickly by President Kennedy's challenge to put a man on the moon before the decade is out. It is only 7 months since NASA's made a bold decision to send Apollo 8 all the way to the moon on the first manned flight of the massive Saturn V rocket, the Saturn V. Now, on the morning of July 16th, Apollo 11 astronauts Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins sit atop another Saturn V at Launch Complex 39A at the Kennedy Space Center. The three-stage, 363-foot rocket will use its 7.5 million pounds of thrust to propel them into space and into history. At 9:32 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, the engines fire and Apollo 11 clears the tower. About 11 minutes later, the crew is in Earth orbit. After 1.5 of those Earth orbits, Apollo 11 gets a go for what mission controllers call translunar injection. In other words, it's time to head for the moon. 3 days later, the crew is in lunar orbit. A day after that, Armstrong and Aldrin climb into the lunar module Eagle and begin their descent, while Collins orbits in the command module Columbia. Collins would later write that Eagle is, quote, the weirdest-looking contraption I have ever seen in the sky, end quotes, but it will prove its worth. When it comes time to set Eagle down in the Sea of Tranquility, Armstrong improvises, manually piloting the ship past an area littered with boulders. During the final seconds of descent, Eagle's computer is sounding alarms. It turns out to be a simple case of the computer trying to do too many things at once. But as Aldrin will later point out, quote, unfortunately, it came up when we did not want to be trying to solve these particular problems, end quotes. When the lunar module lands at 4:18 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, only 30 seconds of fuel remain. Here's a snippet of the radio transmission. Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Mission control erupts in celebration as the tension breaks, and a controller tells the crew, you got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Armstrong will later confirm that landing was his biggest concern, saying, quote, the unknowns were rampant, end quotes, and, quote, there were just 1,000 things to worry about, end quotes. At 10:56 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, Armstrong is ready to plant the first human foot on another world. With more than 500 million people watching on television, he climbs down the ladder and proclaims, quote, that's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind, end quote. Aldrin joins him shortly and offers a simple but powerful description of the lunar surface, quote, magnificent desolation, end quotes. They explore the surface for 2.5 hours, collecting samples and taking photographs. They leave behind an American flag, a patch honoring the fallen Apollo 11-1 crew, and a plaque on one of Eagle's legs. That plaque reads, here men from the planet Earth first set foot upon the moon, July 1969 A.D. We came in peace for all mankind. Armstrong and Aldrin blast off and dock with Collins in Columbia. Collins later says that, quote, for the first time, I felt that we were really going to carry this thing off, end quotes. The crew splashes down off Hawaii on July 24th. Kennedy's challenge had been met. Men from Earth have walked on the moon and returned safely home. In an interview years later, Armstrong praises the, quote, hundreds of thousands, end quotes, of people behind the project. He said, quote, every guy that's setting up the tests, cranking the torque wrench, and so on is saying, man or woman, quote, if anything goes wrong here, it's not going to be my fault, end quotes. In a post-flight press conference, Armstrong calls the flight, quote, a beginning of a new age, end quote, while Collins talks about future journeys to Mars. Over the next 3.5 years, 10 astronauts will follow in their footsteps. Gene Cernan, commander of the last Apollo mission, leaves the lunar surface with these words, quote, we leave as we came, and God willing, as we shall return with peace and hope for all mankind, end quotes. Yes, we live on a planet where there is talk, conspiracy talk, but lots of people say it that we never did this. We never went to the moon. Or conversely, there are those who say, oh, yes, we did that, but way before the general public realized it, years before it was publicized, and that we're still there. Well, going back, still there, you decide, gentle listeners. We're just sticking to the NASA story for today. Now let's see what's in our skies for tonight. Oh, first a quick correction. This broadcaster made a major gaffe yesterday. We ended the Earth Sky segment of our broadcast by saying that we should all get ready to watch the Pleiades meteor shower. Oh, no. It's another P word. It's the Perseid meteor shower. And there's a bit of controversy over when one can begin to watch that. There are those who say, yep, it started already, and while others say that it's the beginning of August that it really gets going. So here's a story from PopularMechanics.com, their space bureau, with a byline for J. Bennett. Headline, the Perseid meteor shower starts now. Subheadline, the Perseids are one of the brightest and most prolific meteor showers of the year. The Perseid meteor shower, one of the brightest and most active meteor showers of the year, began yesterday, July 17th. That means the Earth has moved into a trail of debris left in the wake of the comet Swift-Tuttle. For more than a month, you will be able to catch sight of meteors in the night sky as chunks of rock and ice in that debris trail enter the Earth's atmosphere and burn up. During the peak, the Perseids can produce more than 60 visible meteors per hour. This year, however, there will be that bright waning gibbous moon rising in the sky a few hours after nightfall on the very peak nights of the Perseids. The moon's lights will block out some of the dimmer meteors, but the Perseids are known for being particularly bright, so you should still be able to spot some streaking across the night sky. By August 21st, it will be a new moon, so the night skies will be particularly dark, and it might be the best time to get outside, catch the end of the meteor shower. By this time, Earth will be moving out of the trail of debris that breaks off behind Swift-Tuttle. At that point, meteors will not be as common as during the peak nights. However, the sky will be much darker, and even though meteors won't be as frequent, you could catch some particularly spectacular ones in the dark hours before dawn, August 21st or 22nd. August 24th is officially the end of the Perseid meteor shower. If you want to catch this celestial show, make sure that you can get as far away from towns and other light pollution as possible, and be patient. Your eyes take a full 15 to 30 minutes to adjust, but after they do, you will be able to see much more in the night sky. There can also be extended lulls between meteors, but if you stay patient and vigilant, you will be rewarded. The meteors will come from the direction of the constellation Perseus, for which the annual shower is named, but they should be visible across all of the night sky. And so, from now till August 24th, if you find yourself up and about late at night or early in the morning, don't forget to look up. Good advice, meteor shower or no. While visiting space, check out the stellar winds on TRAPPIST-1 planets. Or maybe that's not a good idea. Here's the headline. Stellar winds could be bad news for life on TRAPPIST-1 planets. Mike Wall writes this for Space.com. 2 new studies suggest this system's potentially habitable planets could have lost their atmospheres long ago. The potentially Earth-like planets in that TRAPPIST-1 system may not be so conducive to life after all. This is reported in 2 new studies. Intense radiation and particles streaming from their host star have likely taken a huge toll on all 7 of these worlds, even the 3 that apparently lie within that Goldilocks zone, the habitable zone, where liquid water could theoretically exist on a planet's surface. Quote, because of the onslaught by the star's radiation, our results suggest the atmosphere on planets in the TRAPPIST-1 system would largely be destroyed, end quotes. That's from Avi Loeb. He's a co-author of one of these studies. He continued, quote, "This would hurt the chances of life forming or persisting," end quotes. Loeb chairs Harvard's astronomy department and also works at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics. In May of 2016, astronomers announced the discovery of 3 roughly Earth-sized planets circling the red dwarf star TRAPPIST-1, which is just 8% as massive as the Sun and lies about 39 light-years from Earth. Further observation revealed that the star hosts 7 rocky planets, 3 of which seemed to be in a habitable zone, otherwise known as HZ. But just being in that HZ doesn't necessarily make a planet habitable. There are many more factors involved, stressed Loeb and the study's lead author, Manasvi Lingam, also of Harvard. One of these factors is something called stellar radiation. TRAPPIST-1 is quite dim, so its habitable zone is very close in. Even the most far-flung TRAPPIST-1 worlds orbit a mere 5.6 million miles, 9 million kilometers or so from the star. As comparison, the innermost planet in Earth's solar system, Mercury, lies 36 million miles, or 58 million kilometers from the Sun on average. Because of this proximity, the TRAPPIST-1 planets are likely barraged by radiation, said Lingam and Loeb. Their modeling work suggests that these worlds receive far higher ultraviolet fluxes than Earth does, so much, in fact, that the exoplanets' atmospheres may have been stripped away. The same reasoning holds for Proxima b, that potentially Earth-like world that orbits a red dwarf just 4.3 light-years from Earth. Quote, "Earth-sized planets in the HZ around M dwarfs," that's another name for red dwarfs, "are presumably much less likely to be habitable, conceivably by several orders of magnitude when compared with the Earth-Sun system," end quotes. That's also from Lingam and Loeb. It's in their study, which was published this month in the International Journal of Astrobiology. The second study, published by the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics, or CFA, and the University of Massachusetts at Lowell, reached similar conclusions. Modeling work by this team suggested that the stellar wind, that stream of particles flowing constantly from a star, exerts pressures on the TRAPPIST-1 worlds that are 1,000 to 100,000 times greater than the solar wind exerts on Earth. But it gets worse. Because the TRAPPIST-1 system is so tightly packed, the star's magnetic field has likely connected with those of the planets, allowing stellar wind particles to flow directly onto these worlds' atmospheres. This has probably caused atmospheric degradation, and the worlds may even have lost their air entirely. Here's a quote from Cecilia Garofo, who is a part of that same study, quote, "The Earth's magnetic field acts like a shield against the potentially damaging effects of the solar wind. If Earth were much closer to the Sun and subjected to the onslaught of particles like the TRAPPIST-1 star delivers, our planetary shield would fail pretty quickly," end quotes. The Garofo-led study has been published also in the astrophysical journal Letters, and you can read it now if you'd like at that unpronounceable website, arxiv.org. While these results aren't great news for people hoping that life exists in the TRAPPIST-1 system, they don't rule out the possibility. Researchers insist this. Said yet another co-author on this work, Jeremy Drake, quote, "But our work and the work of our colleagues show that we should also target as many stars as possible that are more like our Sun," end quotes. Down in Earth's atmosphere, and specifically over the community of Cornwall in the United Kingdom, something's up in the skies. Here's the headline: "Sightings of suspected UFO caught on film across Cornwall." This is from the cornwalllive.com publication. People have been taking to social media with startling footage of what looks suspiciously like a UFO over various spots in Cornwall. Over the last couple of days, the strange, shimmering black object has been spotted over Truro City Centre, Carluden Clay Tip, Fistral Beach in Newquay, above Roche Point, and also by a surfer above the sea off the Cornish coast. The first to spot it was actually surfer Kiefer Krishnan. He caught it on his GoPro camera and posted it on his Instagram account. But of course, a photographer named Shane House spotted the weird object, which appears to disappear and then rematerialize over the A30, also on Monday. He filmed it and then declared on Twitter, quote, "What the, question mark, is this an alien spacecraft over the A30?" End quotes. And then...
You're listening to Love Advice with Leanne. Caller, you're on the air.
Hi, Leanne. Longtime listener, first-time caller. Why, in your professional opinion, do you never take my calls off the air?
Is this Carl?
Yep, it's Carl. I mean, we had a few dates. Everything was great. I thought,
Well, you know, when you switch to Geico, you could save a lot of money on car insurance.
Okay, awesome.
You should call them.
I will.
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
On the following Thursday this week, there were 3 more sightings. The first was by a woman named Trudy who lives in Kent. She posted footage over Roche Rock near St. Austell on her Instagram. She wrote, quote, "What on earth is this in the sky? It looks like some kind of craft to me. Has anyone else seen this?" The final sighting so far was by someone named Steph, who caught the odd object on her phone above Truro while on the way to a hair appointment. Cornwall Live has approached various agencies about these sightings, but no one has any answers. We then realized that something called the Eden Project launches its new journey into space attraction on Thursday. Sounds like a theme park. And we wondered if these supposed UFOs had anything to do with that. So they contacted a spokesman for Eden who replied, quote, "It's true, we have a galaxy of ways to tell the story of space at Eden this summer. To coin a phrase, quote, the truth is out there," end quotes. Well, this article concludes by saying stranger and stranger. Someone call Mulder and Scully in on this case. In this case, this particular broadcaster has a wonky memory. Several years ago, we came upon a series of photographs taken over field settings, pastoral settings, in the United Kingdom. These shots featured flocks of birds twisting and turning, dozens and dozens, perhaps hundreds of them. What it looked like was nothing other than a mysterious object in the sky. We bookmarked those shots and, of course, could not find the link. But check it out. And we suggest perhaps it's time for them to call in an ornithologist rather than a ufologist. Just saying. Head on over later to UFOheadlinenews.com. You'll find links to the story. And while you're at it, sleuth around on ye old internet. See if you can find shots of huge flocks of birds. Let's head across the pond and to the United States, the state of New Jersey, an undisclosed city. It's MUFON case number 85169. The date of this sighting is 7/16/2017. It got a next-day report. In summary, a chrome object, lots of pipe-like tube appendages. Well, again, this is one of those shots that sort of has a creepy overlay to it. It is unique. If it's a hoax, well, we'll just have to stay tuned for that. There are photos accompanying this article. You might want to check those out. Under sighting specifics, the witness lists a viewing distance unknown, an altitude likewise unknown. This object features windows, appendages, and other. Its flight path was stationary, and according to the reporting witness, the object shape does not apply. And when you see the shots, you'll understand that part. They are indescribable. The weather details in this undisclosed location in New Jersey at the time were a maximum temperature of 66 degrees Fahrenheit, 19 degrees Celsius, down to a minimum of 63 degrees Fahrenheit, 17 degrees Celsius. The maximum visibility, mean and minimum visibility, all the same, 2 miles, 3 kilometers. And at the time of this sighting, there was nothing abnormal weather-wise. Here's the short report. My brother and I were outside when we noticed what we thought to be a star in the sky. It was a shiny speck. So we both ran inside and grabbed my camera, which has a 250x zoom lens with 18 megapixels. We took 4 photos, and then we went back inside to look at these shots. In awe, we realized these were shaped oddly. They had pipes. This wasn't a star at all. Thinking this was a UFO, we then went back outside to take more pictures, and it was already gone. It's that UFO magic, the now you see it, now you don't. How about a trip to the Big Apple? Oh, let's do that. New York, New York. Case number 85317, MUFON-wise. The date of this sighting was the 16th of July. It was reported on July 19th, both 2017. The summary. cylinder-shaped UFO rotating on axis. Had at least 4 lights, windows. Rotated like a drill, followed by 3 to 4 saucer sphere-type UFOs. There are shots, and there's a video that accompanies this. Check it out. The sighting specifics are a viewing distance 101 to 500 feet, and then later 500 feet and eventually 1 mile. The altitude was over 500 feet without cloud cover. This sighting duration was 5 minutes, and the object features are described as windows. Its flight path was a path that included directional change, and this object is said to have been shaped like a cylinder. Weather-wise, the maximum temperature over New York was 87 degrees Fahrenheit, 31 degrees Celsius, down to a minimum of 68 degrees Fahrenheit, 20 degrees Celsius. Standard visibility factors, maximum, mean, and minimum, all the same, 10 miles, 16 kilometers. And at the time of this event, there was nothing abnormal in the meteorology. Here's what happened. I was at my local gym in New York City doing Pilates on my mat. I was staring out the huge windows when a large cylinder-shaped UFO appeared in the sky. It was moving towards the east. It was overhead and rotating like a drill, with 4 lights on one side. These would show only on that side after it made a full rotation. Soon after this object appeared, 3 or 4 small saucer or sphere-type UFOs were blipping in and out around it and following it. This thing was clear as day. What I saw looked exactly like the UFO that was filmed in the United Kingdom by officers. This thing rotated just like that object, on and off an axis, the same light pattern as it rotated. This thing had to be hundreds of feet long. It definitely was in the sky. I viewed it for over 5 minutes, and then after it passed overhead, I couldn't see it anymore. I do have videos and photos, but man, iPhone doesn't explain the vividness of what my eyes saw. Rather breathtaking, the concept that something like this would be in the skies over such a population-dense area, and only one report so far. We'll keep our eyes on the Big Apple skies. With a slight adjustment in trajectory, we head west now to the city of Okoboji, Iowa. They spell that Okoboji. It's move-on case number 8517. This event took place on the 2nd of June, 2017, but nobody got around to reporting it till the 18th of July. In summary, saw an orange orb or ball, moved southwest to northeast, made no noise. Sighting specifics offer us a viewing distance in this case of 501 feet to 1 mile, the altitude 500 feet or less. The sighting duration here was 2 minutes. The object features, however, are simply vaguely described as none. The flight path was a straight-line path, and this object was shaped like a sphere. It was hot that night in Okoboji. The maximum temperature was 93 degrees Fahrenheit, 34 degrees Celsius, down to a sensible minimum of 59 degrees Fahrenheit, 15 degrees Celsius. The visibility factors, nothing unusual. The standard visibility, maximum, mean, and minimum visibility read the same, 10 miles, 16 kilometers. And at the time, there was no strange weather happening. But here's what was happening. I was fishing Lake Okoboji and initially noticed what I thought looked like Venus. But it was in the southwest at 1 a.m., and it shouldn't have been there. I caught a fish, so my back was turned to the object for approximately 3 to 4 minutes. After I put my line back out and sat back down, the object had closed this distance. It was now over the south edge of the lake and quickly moved to the northeast side of the lake. This thing was out of sight within 1 to 2 minutes. At the closest, the object was maybe 1/3 to 1/2 a mile away. This thing had the color of the embers of a campfire. It seemed to be maybe 50 feet in diameter. At first, I dismissed it as a drone or something along those lines, but this thing's speed and distance, and there was no noise? Well, that made me wonder. 1 month later, on July 2nd, similar time, after 1 a.m., I saw a similar orb or a ball. This was at a greater distance. It seemed to be south of Royal, Iowa. I was attempting to get a video with my cell phone, but this object completely disappeared. I didn't see which direction or speed it left at. I'm curious if anyone else has seen something along these same lines in northwest Iowa. It seemed to be strange that I saw something June 2nd and then again on July 2nd. Oh, it's just that monthly extraterrestrial visit. What's going to happen August 2nd? We can't wait. We'll keep looking to the area of Okoboji, Iowa. But now we look to the area of time. We don't have any, so we've got to fly because that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to Inception Radio Network. Follow today's stories at ufoheadlinenews.com. Take care of each other. We are all in this together. This is Carol.